Welcome to York, the city of my birth. If you like your history bloody, your streets crooked and your weather consistently damp, you've hit the jackpot. For 2,000 years, this little patch of land where the two rivers meet has been fought over, burned down, rebuilt and saturated in chocolate. Now most of these have a history. York has layers, literally. If you dig a hole in your garden here for some spuds, there's a 90% chance you'll hit a Roman skeleton, a Viking toilet, or at the very least, a Victorian sewer pipe. Before the Romans turned up in 71 AD, the local Celtic tribe, the Brigantes, were just minding their own business. Then the 9th Legion marched up from the south. They looked at the swampy waterlogged confluence of the River Ouse and Foss and thought, perfect, let's build a massive fortress here and call it Eboracum, which roughly translates to the place of the yew trees. Now Eboracum wasn't just a muddy outpost, it became one of the most important military bases in the Roman Empire. It had a massive fortress, walls, hot baths and sewer system that was frankly better than anything that York had seen for the next 1,000 years. Eventually, around 410 AD, the Romans realised they'd left the iron on back home in Rome and abandoned Britain. The locals probably had a brief celebration before the Anglo-Saxons moved in. They looked at Eboracum, completely mispronounced it and came up with the name Eorfric. Eorfric means wild boar settlement, quite festive. The Saxons decided that instead of fighting all the time, they'd try a bit of religion. In 627 AD, King Edwin of Northumbria was baptised in a tiny wooden church built hurriedly for the occasion. That tiny wooden church is a direct ancestor of York Minster, the massive Gothic cathedral that dominates the skyline today. The Minster took roughly 250 years to build, starting in 1220. To put that in perspective, that's about the same amount of time it takes to get through roadworks on the A1. In 866 AD, the Great Heathen Army arrived, led by Ivor the Boneless, who sounds like a terrible choice for a captain but was actually a tactical genius. The Vikings captured the city on All Saints' Day when everyone was in church and not paying attention. They took Eorfric, mispronounced it again and called it Jorvik. Now Hollywood wants you to think the Vikings just turned up, set fire to your grandmother and left, but in York they actually settled down, they became traders and farmers and craftsmen. Jorvik became a bustling cosmopolitan trading hub connected all the way to the Byzantine Empire and Samarkand. We know this because in the 1970s archaeologists dug up Coppergate and found perfectly preserved Viking boats, coins, oyster shells, boots and a massive amount of fossilised human poo. After the Vikings came William the Conqueror in 1066. York resisted him, so William did what any reasonable Norman dictator would do. He burned the entire north of England to the ground in the harrying of the north. He built 2 castles in York to keep the locals quiet. One of them survives today as Clifford's Tower. If you managed to survive the Norman conquest, you'd get to walk down the Shambles. This was officially Britain's oldest, most famous medieval street. Today it's full of Harry Potter fans buying plastic wands, but back in the day it was a street of butchers. The buildings leaned in so close at the top that neighbours could shake hands across the street. They didn't do it for a chat though, it was designed to keep the sun off the meat hanging down below. The middle of the street is sloping down to create a channel where the butchers would wash away the blood, guts and offal twice a week. Delightful. York has definitely changed over the centuries, but you still get that feeling of history wherever you walk. From the city walls to the shambles, museum gardens with its Roman ruins, up through to the medieval period, and of course the Minster, such an iconic place. Such a checkered history, but a wonderful history, and anyone who visits, you can't fail to be impressed. While cities like Manchester and Leeds built their fortune on smoke, soot and textile mills, York had a much sweeter industrial revolution. It became the chocolate capital of Britain. It all started with the family of Quakers, most notably the Rowntrees and the Cravens. Because Quakers weren't allowed to attend university or join the military, they went into business. And because they were so passionate anti-alcohol campaigners, they promoted cocoa as a healthy alternative to getting blind drunk on gin. Joseph Rowntree took over a small cocoa business and turned it into an empire. But he wasn't just a capitalist, he was a social reformer. In 1942, the Luftwaffe launched the Baedeker raids, bombing campaigns specifically targeting British cities with high cultural and historical value. On the night of the 29th of April, the sirens wailed, over 70 bomber planes attacked the city. The historic Guildhall was gutted by incendiary bombs. The railway station was so heavily hit, a bomb crashed straight through the roof of St. Martin-le-Grand. On Coney Street, over 90 people lost their lives, and that night alone. And finally, we really can't talk about York without mentioning a hero or an anti-hero, depends how you look at him. And that man is, of course, are you ready? Drum roll. I'm sure you know who it is. Yep, you've got it. It's that man, remember, the 5th of November, the man of gunpowder, treason and plot fame. It's Guy Fawkes. Yes, he was born in the city, very famous character in British history, and this is his house right across the road from the Minster. So if you're at the Minster, give it a look. It's just another one of the colourful histories of York. Now up to date, yeah, we've got scenes here, tourists enjoying a nice pint in the streets there. York is a great place to visit, so you're welcome to our city. Enjoy a beer and the Yorkshire hospitality.